Obviously, we can look at 2,000 years of history of the different popes and different bishops in a diocese. But also, I often find myself going back to the New Testament and those 12 apostles that Jesus himself, after praying all night, came down and handpicked the 12 apostles, including St. Peter, the first pope. And of course, the New Testament doesn't hide from us his flaws and his failures and even his denial of Christ 3 times. And the Lord tells St. Peter, on this rock I will build my church, Matthew 16, and I give you the keys of the kingdom, all this like amazing stuff. And then I'm going to the cross. And then Peter's the first one to say, no, you're not. And then Jesus calls him Satan. Get behind me, Satan. Is like some authors said it was the first time somebody called the Pope the Antichrist, which would happen again and again throughout history. But, even maybe let's say even a bigger look at history into the Old Testament as well. We have chosen people who were leaders. You think of, Abraham, especially, and up till Moses, and you even get into the whole establishment of the kingship in Israel. So King Saul, the first king, it ended up being terrible. And then King David, who's a man after God's own heart, but yet also had a lot of scandalous sins. It seems like there's this precedence that even though these are God's people, and even though these leaders are chosen by God and anointed, and there's certain graces connected to that, even Jesus will tell the apostles something about the Sanhedrin sit on Moses' seat. This idea of the chair, the seat, is a symbol of somebody's authority and leadership. And yet at the same time, you could even say those human authors through which the Holy Spirit wrote the Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, St. Paul, were not perfect people. They were sinful. And yet somehow they were instruments for that. And I think there's something akin to present day leadership. People, are kind of throwing out top 10 names of cardinals right now who might be the next pope, and the reasons why, and some of it's, kind of interesting. One of them was that the cardinal from Ghana had been a guitar player in a funk band or something. And if he ends up become pope, I don't know. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. But somebody's like, oh, well, we need a pope from Asia, or we need a pope from Africa, and obviously the cardinals are meeting and they're praying and they're discerning, and because we're all human, you got to presume there's some level of politics involved or politicking, but to believe that above and beyond all of that, still somehow, just like throughout the Old Testament, the New Testament, 2,000 years of church history, God is still present and involved. And I think that's an important part, because I've met a number of really devout people who've been kind of influenced by certain people on the internet, especially, who kind of start to have doubts that, the smoke of Satan has entered the church and there's this corruption. And they, some people have even thought perhaps any popes from Vatican II on haven't really been valid popes. Like, there's all these groups out there. And, but for me, I've been so inspired by the Fatima children and their spirituality